So here are the parts pieces of our doll. So the first thing we're going to do now for assembly is put a little, I've got a little peg. This is from a kid's game. You could use a bamboo skewer, and I'm going to put that in the neck. Okay, and then I'm going to start stuffing, and I'm using Polyfill. Actually, this is leftover quilt batting. I'm a quilter. You can use leftover batting, Polyfill. Okay, so you want to shape her. It is going to be flat, but stuffed nicely. So you want to be sure when you put the stuffing up in there that you're only filling the bodice and that the skirt doesn't have any polyfill in it. So then the next thing is to do a line of stitching. And I'm using the same purple yarn that I used to knit right there. All the way from the front to the back, making sure that you're staying on that purple, the purple line of stitching. Weave in your ends. Okay, so next we're going to stuff the head with the polyfill. You're going to be putting the neck up through the head. So polyfill, at this point I'm scooting the polyfill around to the edges, kind of leaving a hole in the middle. See where my finger is. Okay, now you left a tail on your neck, and so I'm going to push the needle. Okay, so I put the yarn on the needle, and I'm going to push that up through the center of the head. Looks like a pumpkin head. Alright, now that's going to help keep the head centered on your doll. Okay? So I'm going to push the head down on the stick, on the neck. Just do a couple stitches right there. Okay. The next step is to stitch the head to the neck. While I'm stitching the head to the neck, I'm also going to go along the shoulder here and here, where the yarn has pulled away a bit. The stitching is pulled, and you can see the fiber fill. I'm going to stitch back and forth just like that. Next, I'm going to use this crochet cotton. You can use embroidery floss to stitch on the eyes. So it's about the center of the head, and I'm coming in from the back because the back will be covered with hair, and I'm just going to do two straight stitches. I'm going to stitch these straight stitches twice. The simplest features for the face, 2 eyes. Next we're going to stitch on the hands, or the arms. Now the arms are going to be positioned right at the top of the bodice, like that. Okay? Now, because the arm is a tube, you can kind of open it up, see, and stitch stitch the front part, on this part of the doll, and then open it out a little and stitch the other part so that it kind of has a open 3D thing going here. See, and then across the bottom of the arm. Hello. There's something troubling me about the doll. Now, on this one, the arms have a lot more definition, the sleeve color, higher contrast, and I don't have very much contrast here. So I've decided, I added this yarn, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a couple stitches like this. That's better. So the next step is to sew the legs on. So I'm going to lift up her skirt, pardon me, right out at the base. That's where we're going to stitch the legs. So I'm stitching through the front and the back of the leg, front and the back of the skirt like that, or the bodice, or the base, or the butt. Second leg, same as the first. Legs on. The next step is to unbillow the skirt. So you're going to use the same yarn that you used at the base of the skirt. What I'm doing is putting the needle through about every second cast on loop. Okay? And then giving it a tug, little tug as I go. See how that works? You can fluff her skirt out like this. So much fun. Alright, now it's time for the hair. So this is how I put the hair on this doll. So I have this yarn that is really beautiful. It's nubby and it is hand dyed. It's got all these gorgeous colors in it. So this is what the hair looks like. So I'm going to be sewing the yarn down with regular sewing thread sewing needle. And I'm using purple. So I'm going to wrap the yarn around her head 3 times to start. See? Okay, then I'm going to start with the stitching. Same going through the head with the needle. And I just want to catch that yarn there and over here where her ear would be if she had an ear. Her ear is hidden by the yarn, by the hair. So obviously I'm going to have to thread this needle a bunch of times because I keep going through the head. There is the beginning of her hair. And then I'm going to, okay, drop that over here. Then I'm going to keep wrapping the yarn around. Catch that yarn in a stitch. And then you can see I'm going to have to rethread my needle next. And come down through the head, underneath there, and catch that. Oh, fuzzy. Okay, and I'm going to catch that in a stitch. So now I'm going to come across here. The needle's going to come up next to the last place I stitched over on this side, and I'm going to catch that yarn. Whoops. I'm going to catch that yarn in a stitch. So I wrap the yarn 3 times before I stitch it down, okay? So the last time you do the coils, you cut the end of the yarn off and catch that in a stitch. So this is what you got at this point. So I've cut 4 pieces of this yarn, and I did it where the purple part was instead of green, because I wanted her to have a purple bun. So for the bun, I just take these pieces of yarn and knot it a couple of times. I think that's about right. So I cut the ends of the yarn off, and I'm going to tuck them in underneath the knots. So I place her bun in the middle of her head back here, and I'm going to tuck in those tails from the yarn, and just stitch the bun in place with as many stitches as I think I need. There's her hair. The final step on the doll is her rose collar. So I have this thick rose color yarn, and I'm just tying a bunch of knots in it. I think that's about right. And I'm going to impale her with both sides of the yarn, and then I will tie it in the back, cut that off. Alright, and then I will just wrap this yarn around several times around the rose, around the neck, and then tie a knot. Ta-da! She's done. Another dancing doll to go with her sisters, the other dancing dolls. And I have a couple more that I'm making too. Hope you enjoyed it.